For decades, Dudleytown has been infamous for countless legends, from ghostly apparitions to frightening and strange creatures, paranormal curses, and more. But what is it about this small Connecticut ghost town that has spawned these legends? Is this place truly cursed? Is it evil? That's what we'll be diving into here on Blackwood Mysteries. Dudleytown's history from the beginning has been shrouded in darkness. Settled in the 1740s by Gideon Dudley and Thomas Griffey, as well as their families, other families soon flocked to join them. The town was never officially a town, however. It was more or less an isolated part of the Cornwall township. The town or village rested in the middle of three large hills. In spite of this, settlers began to trickle into the area. The Tanner family, the Joneses, the Patterson, the Dibbles, and the Porters all took up residence here. The community grew even larger after iron ore was discovered nearby, and farming became a secondary concern. However, there were never any shops or schools or churches in Dudley town. Provisions had to be purchased in nearby towns, and when one died, a trip to Cornwall was necessary, because in addition there was no church in the town, there was no cemetery either. The population of Dudleytown was never large, and according to an 1854 map, the peak number of families who lived there only ever reached 26. In spite of all these things, the town did thrive. For a time, Dudleytown was noted for its timber, which was burned and used to make wood coal for the nearby Litchfield County iron furnaces in Cornwall and other towns. The furnaces later moved closer to the railroads and the more industrial towns, though, and the lumber was no longer needed. Iron ore was used from the area for a time, and there were 3 water-powered mills in Dudley as well. But despite the outward signs of prosperity, there were strange deaths and bizarre occurrences that began to take place in Dudleytown, things that make you question just what could have been happening there. The Carter family, who had settled there originally in 1759, shortly after arriving, would have 6 members pass away from a mysterious plague that swept through Cornwall. This later was believed to possibly be Sarah. However, no source was ever conclusively found. Devastated by the loss, the remaining members would relocate Binghamton, New York, and an attempt to leave the tragedy to the past. But life would have other plans. Inside what was called the Delaware Wilderness at the time, the remaining Carters would be attacked, raided, and slaughtered by Native American tribesmen. Nathaniel, his wife, and their infant child, all would be killed. Nathaniel's remaining kin, the other 3 children, would be kidnapped and taken north to Canada, where the 2 daughters were ransomed. The son, David Carter, remained with his captors and was essentially assimilated into their tribe. In 1792, a man named Hollister bizarrely passed away at his friend Tanner's home. The cause of his passing is unknown. However, following Hollister's death, Tanner began to see things that he couldn't explain. In the weeks to come, he became obsessed with these strange, ominous creatures he said he was seeing out in the woods, and at night. In just a short time, Tanner would lose his mind. His daughter would be tasked with taking care of him until the end of his life, and this wouldn't be an isolated incident either, as Tanner was slowly going insane. His neighbor next door, a man named Abel, also began telling people that he too was seeing weird creatures in the forest, and at night ominously lurking about. In due time, he as well would go insane, would have to be cared for by his family until his inevitable death. Another incident affected one of the most famous residents of the region, General Herman Swift, a man who had served during the Revolutionary War under George Washington in 1804. As a cool breeze blew on an overcast day, the general and his wife were sitting on their front porch, enjoying each other's company, when suddenly his wife, Sarah Fay, was struck by lightning seemingly out of nowhere. She would die instantly from the strike. Unable to come to terms with what had happened, Herman would go insane and would die himself shortly after with no discernible cause. And following this incident, yet another occurred, also affecting a famous individual for their time, the editor and founder of the New York Tribune, a man named Horace G. Y. Shortly after marrying his wife, Mary Youngcheney, Horace moved to the area from New York City as part of the wellness movement. The movement for that time promoted breathing fresh air, exercise, and a vegetarian diet. Things seemed well for a time. That was until Mary, who suffered from a lung disease, possibly asthma, began having regular fits. These fits would occur whenever she saw something terrifying that she said was lurking in the woods. As a result of these continued episodes, the two would relocate yet again back to New York City, and once back decided to run for president against Ulysses S. Grant, but lost the election. Mary would take her final struggle breath the night before the votes were cast. Horace G. Y. himself would die just 1 Months later, throughout these notable cases, several other members of the town would lose their lives to strange circumstances, including, but not limited to, drowning, unknown plague, fire, and undetermined circumstances. It was if someone or something had put a curse on Dudleytown over the years of its settlement. Tanner, Abel, and Mary wouldn't be the only ones who said that they saw things that they couldn't explain. Soon, whispers spun into legends, as many of those of the time came forward, also claiming to have seen terrifying and bizarre-looking entities originating from the forest. By the early 1900s, all of the residents of Dudleytown had either left or met their fate. Those that didn't leave abandoned their homes, and this was except for one family, the Bros. However, their tenure as the last family in Dudleytown would be short-lived. In rapid succession, their livestock would perish. The mother of the family would have tuberculosis and pass. Their two sons would be accused of theft in a nearby town and would disappear, presumably going on the run and never to be seen again. This then left John Broy, the patriarch of the family, as was its only remaining resident. Just weeks after his boys disappeared, his home would burn down. Escaping the blaze, and overcome with grief, John, with the clothes on his back, simply wandered into the forest and was never seen or heard from again. Following the disappearance of John Broy, the town officially became uninhabited, a ghost of its former self. But although a ghost town, this too is far from the last chapter of the story. In the summer of 1906, a husband and wife enjoyed a beautiful drive throughout the countryside of Litchfield County, Connecticut, a place filled with forests, fresh air, and winding roads. As they drove by, off in the distance they spotted a covered wooden bridge that seemed to lead up towards a forested area on top of a hill, and this piqued their interest, because this area appeared to be darker than the rest. Crossing the bridge and following the winding roads up near the forest itself, they finally had to pull their vehicle over and walk into where the forest began. The duo, who lived in New York City full-time, was trying to get a break from the hustle and bustle of the Big Apple, and sought peace and quiet in nature. They had hoped on this trip that they would find a place to build their second home, one that would allow them to get just what they thought they needed. It was here that the two believed that they had found just that. As they entered the forest, the thickness of the canopy above them, alongside the natural shade from the nearby hills, made it almost as if it was dark during the day inside. However, the air was crisp and clean everywhere they seemed to look. They saw beautiful displays of nature, wild flowers, apple trees, and crystal clear streams of water. They walked through the ruins of what appeared to be a forgotten civilization. Old and crumbling stone walls, decaying foundations, were all that remained. The couple was blown away by what they had discovered, and some background information about them. These two people were Dr. William Cogwell Clark and his wife Harriet. Dr. Clark was an oncologist, or a cancer doctor, in NYC, and was also a professor at Columbia University, teaching other physicians and surgeons. And although the couple's lives were busy and exciting, they had been extremely fortunate to be as successful as they were, and as previously mentioned, sought to have a place where they could go to recharge and check out from their schedules for a while, feeling taken in as if the forest itself was answering their prayers. The Clarks unanimously decided that this is where they would build their second home. In due time, after returning to New York City, they would promptly turn in the paperwork, placing an order to purchase a 000 acres encompassing their little piece of heaven. The 1,000 acres of forest they had purchased was of the dark entry forest, named so for the previously mentioned dark appearance. Once inside, once the land deal was finalized, Dr. Clark began to search for local builders who would construct his home. The only problem was no one wanted to build it. No matter how much money he offered, he would be rejected time and time again, yet never truly receiving a straight answer as to what was going on. It was if these builders believed the land to be cursed, and perhaps they were right. Paying no mind, and being a handyman himself, Clark decided to take it upon his shoulders to construct a home for him and his wife. Therefore, every weekend, for the next several months, Dr. Clark would travel to the couple's land and work on building this home. What would he eventually turned out to be a modest 2-story wooden cabin. By the time the cabin was finished, it was Thanksgiving, and to celebrate the holiday, the Clarks spent their time in their beloved cabin in the woods, never seeming to get enough time there. The couple from there on out would spend every free weekend and holiday fishing, hiking, and overall enjoying nature and each other's company. However, things would take a very different turn in 1918. It was the summer, and the Clarks, as they had been, were relaxing at their cabin, When Dr. Clark received a message that there was an urgent medical emergency, one that beckoned him back to New York City, Harriet was unhappy to say the least. The thought of being alone surrounded by woodlands, for God knows how long, didn't sit well with her. But as she dropped William off at the nearby train station, she made him promise that he would return as soon as he could. William would agree, and try to put his wife at ease, then would board the train and disappear into the fog. The emergency would end up being rather short-lived, and Dr. Clark within 36 hours was back on a train and headed back towards his wife. But when the train pulled into the station, despite his previous communications, Harriet was nowhere to be seen. Not a superstitious man, but having an odd feeling in his gut, William began to worry. Mildly panicked, he began to vigorously walk towards the road that led to his home. Upon entering the dark entry forest, he began to hear the loud hooting of forest owls. Something that normally wouldn't be eerie, but given the circumstances was unnerving. With that pit in his stomach ever sinking, William began to run towards his house. As he edges closer, he sees that the front door is partially open. With his heart pumping, he approaches the cabin and throws the door open, but almost as soon as his feet cross the threshold, a horrific high-pitched noise begins emanating from upstairs. Frozen in his tracks at the canopy of the owls hooting and the high-pitched noise, it takes the doctor a moment to come back to his senses. As he snaps back to reality, he realizes that this horrible noise is coming from his wife running upstairs as fast as he can. He rushes towards the bedroom, which is also partially open. Throwing it back, he discovers Harriet there in one of the corners of the room. She's curled up in a fetal position, her head and shoulder propped against one of the walls. Her mouth is open, and her jaw is grotesquely unhinged. The high-pitched sound found upon closer inspection is some kind of maniacal laughter emanating from his wife as her wide eyes stared into his. As the laughter continued, Dr. Clark broke. He turned and ran as fast as he could out of the cabin, presumably to seek outside help. Details are scarce as to what truly happened to Harriet Clark. Some say she was committed and spent the rest of her life in an asylum, and others that she ultimately went back to New York City, but would take her own life. It's hard to say, but one converging detail that seems to emerge is that she wouldn't stop talking about the strange creatures that she saw in the woods. What was once a couple's dream ultimately turned into a nightmare. But before the true conclusion of Dudleytown, there are a few things I'd like to cover further with you. Some historians have attempted to downplay the unusual events in recent years. They will debunk the legends of the town by first stating how few people were there who lived there, and then we'll try to downplay the disappearances, cases of insanity, and weird deaths as if such things happen all the time, and perhaps they do. But why so many unusual happenings in such an isolated area with so few people living in it? How strange is it that numerous people lost their lives either to what seemed like freak accidents, or insanity, or both? Just what were these creatures that people kept seeing and or experiencing? Were they the product of the forest itself, some kind of infernal pact, or something else entirely? Just what exactly would cause such a supposed curse to exist and overtake those who dared to call Dudleytown home? Interestingly, those who have visited the area closer to the modern day have reported phantom figures, yet again seeing strange creatures and eerie sounds. One potential explanation might be this: in the 1970s, the famous paranormal couple, Ann and Lorraine Warren, actually filmed a special inside the dark entry forest, and their ultimate conclusion was that the whole area was infested with demons. My question further still that remains unanswered is how, unfortunately, with this case we are left with more questions than answers. However, what is certain today is this Dudleytown, or the area where it once stood, as private property. This means that it is illegal to enter, so please do not trespass, not just for the legal consequences, but as we've learned today, this place is not fit for human beings. It is especially dangerous. So if you value your freedom, sanity, and soul, do not enter this place, because you may never get the chance to return. Thank you all so much for watching this latest video. Please don't forget to give the video a like. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment below, and share it around, as well as subscribe with notifications on, so you don't miss a new upload. Take care, I'll see you next time.